Hey, so I went and changed up my practice routine once again a little over a month ago, and I finally went and got back into this book here, the Leonard Guitar Method. I had been using it for a good while, just as a sight reading thing for learning the various positions. Of course, the book's made for first position, but I basically went to the beginning and played each song, starting in first position, second, fourth, fifth, seventh, and ninth. And that's kind of my way of teaching myself the various positions, which has been super helpful. But then I quit for a long time so I could do some other things in my practice routine. And I finally got back into it, and I'm digging it. I'm enjoying it. Right now I'm on page 101. This is Arkansas Traveler, which apparently is an old fiddle tune. And it's funny because it kept coming up in various method books, not just guitar but violin, obviously because it's a fiddle tune. So it is a violin, originally for the fiddle, if you're a fiddle guy. I was playing around with it a little bit for the last couple of days, and I wanted to see if I could do a perfect run through. Maybe simulate a little bit of practice pressure by having the camera staring at me. And now this isn't pure sight reading because I have practiced it a little bit for the last couple of days. And I'm going to be doing it with piano. So we've got here, for most of the songs in this book, or a lot of the songs at least, they've got two parts. And so what I'm doing is taking this harmony guitar part, and I'm going to play that from the piano in the right hand. And I'm also going to be playing the chords on the piano. And then there's a repeat for both parts, and I'm going to try and see if I can survive without crashing. If I do the harmony on the piano first round through as written in the pitch as written, and the second time I'm going to do it an octave higher for the right hand. And I found a really cool piano sound that just works really well, I think, for it. It's kind of like a vibraphone-ish sound. So that's what I'm going to have going on the piano side. The guitar is just going to be the melody. We'll see if I can keep it going in tempo with the piano in fifth position. And that's it. So we'll see whether I crash and burn. Sometimes what I do is I play so fast on the piano that when it comes to the guitar, I just freeze up and can't finish the song. Or even though I'm better at the piano sometimes because it is sight reading, I've practiced it a little, but not that much. So sometimes my fingers just get confused with some of these parts. So what I'm going to do is give myself an intro. There's these last two measures. I'm just going to play those on the piano with the melody and the left hand being the chords. And then, that's pretty much it. And I'm going to crank up the piano a little bit because it's a funny thing recording with my iPad. If I was doing a proper recording job, then I'd have things hooked up. But just recording with my iPad, for some reason the guitar amp sitting down here, it comes out a lot louder than the piano, even though actually being in the room, they might sound the same volume. But so I got to crank up the piano in order so that when it's recorded, it'll actually sound like they're more or less in the same volume range. All right, let's see what happens here. Oh, I gotta record. It'd be terrible if I just forget to record. of the second part for the guitar, or for the yeah, whatever that is. See what happens here. Recital, I would not be very happy. I'm going to give that another run through just to make myself feel better. Now, actually I'm going to redo the whole thing just to make myself feel better. Because that was part of my plan coming in. I've seen a lot of articles and heard people talking about how helpful it can be to simulate performance pressure. And so that was something I kind of wanted to do as I came into this, was give myself some simulated performance pressure. Part of what I did to give me some of that was I practiced a little bit beforehand, so there's some more significance to it for me. And then I had in my head the likelihood. I was pretty much set on putting it up no matter how it turns out, which is what I'm planning on doing. And then also I had all that stuff that I said before I started. I may have sounded like I was saying it off the top of my head, but I don't think very well on the fly, and I don't want to have long pauses in my videos, so I kind of added some performance pressure by saying, okay, here's my, once I get all that said, I'm not going to want to delete my video, and I'm not going to want to have it having holes where you edit and you have the clips moving. So I got to experience that performance pressure, which I have also experienced by doing recitals. I haven't done a lot of recitals because I haven't taken formal lessons all that much, but I did some. I took piano for a couple years in college, and I took voice and some other things at different points, took guitar for a little bit. So I've had some recitals, and I know what that feels like. This doesn't feel that intense. Of course, I didn't prepare as much. Like, you rehearse a lot more for an actual recital. But this was a good experience for me. And I've heard people suggest, get some friends together and do a recital. Actually, when I was taking violin, I took violin for like a year in person. Now I just do it on my own. But when I was taking violin, and it was a small little music shop, and we did a recital. It was like a Christmas recital, and the reason we did it is because you want to get those performance experiences in as soon as you can, so that it doesn't become this daunting, impossible thing. Another thing that I learned running through this is that is just how helpful it can be, and I'm better at this than I used to be, but just at being able to make a mistake. And of course, when you practice, you stop and you fix it because you're trying to get those pathways in your brain to be working right. But when you're going, if you do that, then people are sitting and watching you, and that's not nice if you've got an auditorium full of somewhere between 20 and 100 people, depending how large the recital is and how many kids are performing. That doesn't feel good. So the skill of being able to make a mistake and then follow the accompaniment. So in this case, it's kind of like I have a pianist accompanying me, and I can follow because it's a lead sheet, so it's real easy. I just see the melody note, and if it was an actual accompaniment, you could still see the melody note because usually it's just the note that's on top. And so then being able to jump back in where the accompaniment is, instead of just, which is something that a lot of performers do, is you just let the pianist finish for you. Which if you goof up in measure 3 and you can't find where you're at, it's a pretty lousy feeling just standing up there or sitting up there, depending what instrument and what you're doing. As a vocalist, standing up there and waiting for the pianist to finish for you, that's a horrible feeling. So I'm better than I was at just being able to pick up and guess where I am relative to the notes that I'm hearing, and then jump back in. So even though if this was a recital, I would say that I flopped and I killed it. I killed it in the bad sense of the word, not the good sense of the word. But I would be able to walk away and say, well, I've learned some things. And I'm sure if it was a recital, when I have had those flop experiences, usually people would come up and say, hey, I can tell you've been improving over the last year since I last heard you. They say encouraging things like that, so that's nice. But I could also say to myself, or if I had a teacher, my teacher would probably tell me, you got to experience what the nerves feel like. You got to experience what it's like when you've done this a million times and then your fingers just don't work, and you were able to jump back in. And that's a pretty big deal, because if you are, let's say you're doing an actual performance, let's say you become an actual performer. Not that most students don't end up being real performers, but let's say you do. When you're in a band or something. In a band context, people aren't going to particularly care that you messed up a little bit, unless it's bad enough that the whole thing blows up, which is not likely going to happen. So the only thing that's going to matter is that you stay with the tempo and you follow other people and make something that sounds harmonious, or depending on the kind of band you're in, something that sounds nasty and violent. Whatever vibe you're going for. The key is being able to stay with the vibe, and that I didn't do. But I was able to come back into it. And that's one of the limitations of playing with sheet music or with memorized music, is you're not going to be as likely to fake it past. If you're improvising, or you're improvising with people, you're playing based on a chord chart, you can take an actual wrong note and you can kind of fake it off. You hit a black note when you're supposed to hit a white note in the key of C, and you can just do some chromatic stuff, and if you know what you're doing, you can kind of make it sound like this was just the spicy part, or however you want to put that. So here's my first time giving myself that kind of performance pressure in a video. I don't like the feeling. I don't like what I'm feeling right now, but it's a good experience.